Hello and welcome to Crawl Space Concepts install video. The purpose for this video is to give you some idea of what it's going to be like to install the vapor barrier dry space in your crawl space. So here in this crawl space we have a little extra room. This is a larger crawl space than normal. This is a tri-level in Michigan. Mostly their complaints were odor and high humidity, moisture coming up out of there in the summer and the winter time. So here you can see the black foundation seal tape is on the wall. There's the craft paper that Rich is pulling back right now. When the foundation seal tape is put on the foundation and worked in, and I mean worked in by pushing it in with your hand and getting a good seal like you would with any tape, it bonds really well to the block, and it bonds extremely well to the back of the vapor barrier. The craft paper helps you, to some degree, it helps you determine how much of the wall is being worked with at a time, because it does stick that well to the vapor barrier, that if you accidentally pull too much off and you get a piece stuck to it past where you're working, it's rather difficult to get off. And there you see the wall is hanging on its own. The final steps will be the foundation pins that go in, and here we have a bladder tank in the corner that we're going to have to work around. This particular bladder tank is hard lined in, and what that means is we've got very little room to work with. So he's going to get the wall set up to the corner as far as he can, and then we're going to fold it back and work around it. And it's going to take two of us to lift that tank. Now we've already drained the tank. We've shut the water off and drained the tank. And then right now he's going to get the wall up. The most critical part when you work in a corner like this and working around objects like this that are in your way is to keep the top of the vapor barrier consistent and keeping it straight, and that will keep the major wrinkles out. And then you may have to go back and push in areas like Rich is doing right here and getting it sealed up against the foundation seal tape when you have obstructions and insulation and things like that lean down and get in your way. You may have to go back and do a correction. The important part is to get it sealed up. That's what keeps the moisture out of the crawl space and out of the home, is having that tape sealed against the foundation and securely against the vapor barrier. So here he's going to have to fold it back. Sometimes the hard part is getting out of your own way when you're working with this stuff, because you have to plan it out properly as far as the length of the walls so that you can work around obstructions like these bladder tanks and supports and different things that are going to be in your way. And sometimes it takes making the wall longer so it lays on the floor further, so you only have to deal with that object one time rather than deal with it with the wall and then again lift it up to get the floor underneath it, and then have a problem with how you get the tape under an object like that. So here we are together, getting ready to fold and pull this corner around the bladder tank, and this is going to take both of us to lift it, because we're dealing with folding it and laying it at the same time. So the first thing we want to do is to get the top sealed to the top of the block, and keep our consistent corner. We tuck it in the corner and then we pull it back away from the corner onto the foundation seal tape. Get a nice tight straight seal or seam on it so that we don't get any major wrinkles. Just the aesthetic looks. If you get wrinkles, it's not a big deal. It's just more for looks. You want to make sure that everything gets sealed up. That's the first and foremost. So here we're going to work. He's got to work down the corner, and in the situation like this where we have pipes coming through the wall, we have to trim and cut around that in order to get it to fit. And as you can see, he's done that already. He's got that cut around, and we'll go back with tape and seal that back up. So now we're on to the next piece of wall. The piece that we're putting up now is going to go underneath the bladder tank and back through, and you can see we're folding it in half so that we can get the bulk of it behind it. And then we're going to set it to the bond, the foundation seal tape. We're going to set the bond and get that stuck and in place, and then we'll lay down the majority of the rest of the wall, and then together we'll work on lifting that bladder tank and getting it underneath. Now, one of the obstructions you can see is that we've got a lot of the dry space vapor barrier kind of bound up behind it. So it takes a little bit of manhandling to get back to the edge and get it to where you're not undoing anything you've done as far as pulling it off the wall. And when you lift the bladder tank, when they're hard lined in like that, you have to be careful that you don't cause yourself a leak or cause a water problem or damage anything. So you just got to be just very careful and take your time with it. And for the most part, it usually goes pretty smooth. And these are occasions and cases where two people are just mandatory to get a job like this done. This one here is, for the most part, this job was a pretty simple one. This one that probably either one of us could have done typically on our own, with maybe a little assistance from the homeowner on the bladder tank side of it. That was our only real major obstruction here. So we're pulling it through, and Rich took his turn. Rich is on the left, I'm on the right. Rich took his turn lifting it up, and then it becomes my turn to lift it while he pulls through after I got it started in there. And then we pull it through and we line up the seam and get it nice and tight before we set it back down. We try to get it set right where it's going to go. In other words, we move it around as much as we need to move it around all at one time rather than coming back and moving it again. This way, when it's done, it's complete. And the way we set the walls and we laid everything to figure was the floor was not going to go underneath the bladder tank. We made the walls longer so that they would go under the bladder tank and stick past, so we could get a seam on it past that. So here we are with that wall that we put up, and we've got the beams. Now, whether you have a metal beam or a wood beam, they're still going to need to be cut around when you take the vapor barrier to the bottom of the floor joist. So you'll have some obstructions and that come down, pipes and different things. And it's just a matter of trimming it and keeping the vapor barrier straight, so that your cuts are straight and you get a better seam that way. But again, if you cut a little too much, you can always go back and put some tape over top of it and fix that. And then the other side of the beam, we're putting up the last portion of the wall, pushing it through, and setting it up on the foundation seal tape. And you just got to watch that it doesn't try to ride up on you. You may have to, and it's not impossible to pull it back off of the foundation seal tape. It's just not really recommended because you could pull it off the block, and you want to get it to stick to the block the first time and keep it on the block. So you need to do everything you can to keep from having to pull it back off. And as you work with it, you'll get a better feel after the first piece. All right, so here we've got the sewer coming up out of the ground, and then it falls right along the wall. So we're trimming the wall portion of it around the sewer, and it's simply just cut around it in a circle, and then lay the piece over top of it, and then you can trim it. Instead of trying to guess where the circle ends up, you just lay it back down, and you'll see where you're going to end up, and then it lays right back inside there, and you've got a seam that you tape up, and you seal it right up to the metal. So now we're moving on to the floor, and we moved up the extension cord, but generally you're going to come across occasions where you have cables and phone lines and things like that, and you need to make sure that you keep that on top of the vapor barrier so that you can get to it. If you got a connection that goes bad or something like that, you don't have to cut it at one end and splice it and run new line. You just get right to where the problem is. And on top of that, anything on top of the vapor barrier is going to be in a lot better condition than whatever's left underneath it, because it's going to be much cleaner and much drier on top. So this particular crawl space is about 451 square feet, and what we're looking at right here is about half of it. There's another half on the other side. We take our shoes off once we get onto the white side. It keeps it from getting it dirtier than we need to. Ultimately, we want a nice clean surface, and if we walked around with our boots on, we'd get it all muddied up. And again, it's aesthetics, but when we're being paid to install a vapor barrier like this and to do a process like this, it's more valuable to the customer that when it's clean and white, and it gives a much better appearance of healthy, and it looks better. So it's up to you, but once you get the white side up, and depending on what season you do it in as well, it's not very uncomfortable to have your shoes off. So here we are with the final taped seam. There's our bladder tank, and the homeowner had come in when we were doing this and changed out his water filter. There's the supports that are wrapped. Typically we go 2 feet up. on the supports, and then with this being a tri-level, the home there is to the right. Well, there you have it. I hope this helped you with determining whether this is a project that you want to do, or answer some of the questions that you had with how to do it. Keep an eye on the website. We're going to have more videos coming describing different situations, some more difficult, more specific problems, things like that. Remember, you can always get a hold of us at fixmycrawl.com and crawlspaceinfo.com. Thank you very much, and have a good day.